Listen to this episode if you want some quick, actionable answers to my community's most burning questions right now. Today is a fun Q&A style episode for CPG brands, basically product-based businesses. We're diving in to your questions that you have asked. All questions today are submitted inside of my free community, the Small Business Cafe. This is a space for my podcast listeners to gain some bonus support from me. We have monthly calls. You also get to connect with other business owners, get to be featured on the episodes, as well as you get some added bonus resources. I share my favorite books, my favorite interviews that I'm watching, and some other pieces inside of this community. You can click the link in the show notes to join. Today's episode is all from that community. And this episode is going to be fun because it really is just me going through the Ask the Host section of our community and answering people's questions. I haven't really looked at these too deeply. You're going to get kind of my raw and real responses to them based on basically if we were sitting down and having an actual coaching session from here. So without further ado, we're going to dive on in. Before we do that, 10 quick seconds. My name is Madison Page. I'm a business growth specialist. I help you turn your small business into a brand so you can disrupt your industry and grow your business to be the next household name. Today, we are really diving into some good, juicy questions, and I am so excited about it. First things first is, how do I know when I should start outsourcing production? This is such a good question. And this might go for somebody that is making something in their home. You might be hand making it. You might be kind of making it yourself. Honestly, I am pro outsourcing production as absolutely soon as possible. Honestly, when it comes to production, it is something that is time consuming, especially if you are doing it. You as the business owner should not be in charge of production. You are in charge of growing the business. As a founder, you have to be in charge of the big things that actually work on your business. You have to be in charge of the operations, the growth, the expansion. And when you are producing your product, it is just time before you have to outsource it because your time is capped. So if you find yourself actually making the product all the time, I highly recommend outsourcing it as soon as possible. I mean, honestly, if I were to start a brand, I would not be starting a brand that I have to do the production at all. I would be having anything that I make manufactured without a doubt. When it comes to production, if you are hand making an item, of course, it's a little tough if you've completely marketed your brand as like a handmade business to now outsource the production. Can be a little tricky, but I would absolutely do it as soon as possible. If you are feeling like your time is capped and that you aren't actually able to get enough done, do enough of the marketing, do enough of the actual building of your business, make the website tweaks, actually work on reaching out to PR opportunities, all of those different pieces are things you have to be doing to work on and growing your business. It's time to outsource that production. Now, I understand if you are a handmade business, if you're an artist, that can be a little bit tricky, but I have even helped some of my artist clients outsource at least areas of production within their business, because as a founder, your most important asset is your time. And so if you are spending your time creating something that doesn't actually take your brain, that is when it is an issue. And of course, we can outsource other things. If you absolutely need to be the product creation, you can do product development. You just can't be the person actually filling the jars and actually doing the full production of the product. So to answer your question, how do I know when to start? As soon as you start to have consistent enough sales that your time is feeling capped at all. I honestly want you to outsource before your time is feeling capped. And there's a lot of ways you can get something manufactured, but you can also hire somebody on your team to just do the production as well, to make the candles or to make the perfume or whatever that might be. But if you have a product that is not manufactured yet, I highly recommend doing it as soon as possible. The next one is as a solopreneur, I'm clear on the areas where I struggle. Things like organizing visual content, staying consistent with financial tracking, and translating strategy into weekly execution. But I often don't know who I actually need, not by title at least. How do you approach hiring or outsourcing when you can clearly name your weaknesses, but you don't know what roles your job titles to look for? Is there a smarter way to reverse engineer hires based on your bottlenecks without wasting time or money? Yeah, 100%. I mean, the person themselves should be, especially if you're hiring like an agency or something like that, they should be able to tell you if what you're looking for is within the scope. Another great way to do this is utilize AI and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to do these things. I know I struggle in these areas in my business. What would be a title or a person that I could hire? And what would they go by? How do I actually search them up? But when we really go about, how to identify, it seems like you know your bottleneck. So if you are good at the visual content, staying consistent with financial tracking and translating strategy into weekly execution, let's say you're bad at marketing. I don't know if you're bad at marketing. Let's say you're bad at marketing, you don't have any marketing strategy, and you don't really have a launch strategy. Then you want to put that into AI, chat that with ChatGPT, or really what you're looking for is a lot of times it's like marketing specialist or it's production specialist or production assistant. But I think the easiest way to really identify if you have absolutely no idea where to start is to put it into ChatGPT. These are the areas that I need. And at the end of the day, the title doesn't matter. It's just hiring, like making sure the expectations are there and that person really knows. So if you're hiring somebody in-house locally or whatever to help you with something, you can call it like a production assistant, but that job can grow. We've all been in a job before that you started as, a production assistant, and then all of a sudden you're doing marketing. And so it's okay for their job title to grow as your business grows and as that employee grows with you. But when you don't know where to actually look, anytime, I would just put your bottlenecks, even just brain dump into ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm really good at these things. I'm really bad at these things. Based on this, where do you think the first place that I should hire would be? Or like, what is the job title of the person that I would hire in order to outsource these tasks, and go from there? There's a lot of very generalized titles out there as well. Again, production assistant, marketing assistant, virtual assistant, things like that. All of those have a very large breadth of topics. And so you can kind of just shove a bunch of people into there. And I would ask the people as you hire from there. But there is a big area of business that you do, if you're hiring somebody in-house, you have to be comfortable with really asking those people the right questions and making sure that you can see if they are somebody that's trainable and that they can really move into it with you. Next one is how to read analytics and what they really mean. Such a good question. Analytics side of things is really tricky because if you haven't looked at your analytics before, that sheet just looks like a whole bunch of numbers and you're like, great, my average order value is 86. What does that tell me about my brand? My conversion rate is, 1.2%. That sounds terrible. Is it terrible? I don't really know. And how do you really know what to do with the analytics that you're looking at? There's an element of this that is just understanding of analytics. I can look at 4 different reports and get a very strong health of your business because I have seen hundreds of people's businesses and analytics at this point. So I can tell, and I know different benchmarks within different industries, or I know benchmarks within e-commerce as a whole. I can look at your analytics and give you the health of your business because I've just been doing it for so many years and I can really understand. There's also an element of almost just like inference. There's an element of making an educated guess of what this could mean before you really understand what it does mean. So let's look at the average order value per se. So if your average order value is $82 and we're looking at that and you say, okay, what does that mean? Okay, my products are $40 a piece. That tells me that the average person is buying 2 products, right? They're buying 2 products. Does that really make sense? How can we increase that? Does that feel good for the brand that we have? The next thing to look at there is kind of looking at your free shipping threshold. If your free shipping threshold is $99 and your average order value is 82, there's something wrong within your buying cycle because your average order value, if you're actually giving them some of those kind of benchmarks, your average order value should be just higher than your free shipping threshold, or just because that is what that whole goal is for. So we can change different strategies based on looking at different things. Another big piece, yes, we can kind of look at it and reverse engineer it. So if we look and we say, okay, you have a really big abandoned cart rate. Your abandoned cart rate is huge. Everybody, you have a very low, which your abandoned cart rate, people are adding to cart. You have eyes on your website, but your abandoned cart rate is really high. What can that mean? That tells me that there's still, so again, kind of using your actual just deductive reasoning, what does that mean? that tells me that your marketing is not actually communicating the value, and that they probably still have questions that they're not actually sold when they go to your website. That tells me that we have to build more like immediate urgency. That tells me that we have to get people more excited and answer more people's tangible questions. That means we have to balance the emotional and the tangible a little bit more. If your return customer rate is 82%, that sounds awesome, but it's actually a major issue, because if your return customer rate is 82%, that tells me that out of 10 purchases, 8 of them are recurring, which tells me you actually don't have new people coming into your community, which means you're about 3 to 6 months away from a major sales plateau, because those people are not actually like, people you can't just have recurring customers. You need to have new people coming in and getting more brand awareness. So this tells me that we need some change within your overall marketing. So you can look at different numbers and say, okay, what does this actually kind of tangibly mean? Number one. Number two is benchmarks. You also can understand, Google what the benchmarks are within your industry. What's the average kind of conversion rate on an e-commerce website within this industry? And it can kind of tell you some different answers there. But reading analytics really does come over time. Those were all website analytics. The other analytics based on your website, things are on your socials, on your emails. Again, a lot of it goes back to benchmarks. A lot of it goes back to deductive reasoning, and a lot of it goes back to repetition and really understanding it. This is something that when I ask my clients what their some of the most impactful things that they had, was to have me just be able to analyze their numbers and tell them what it actually means, and really teach them what do you need to look for, what are the major 4 to 10 different things that you need to look at every month to know if what you're doing is working or what it's not. Your data is what drives all of your decisions. I had a call yesterday with a client, and she was like, hey, Maddie, I had 3,500 people join an email funnel and I only got 4 sales from it. Can we really look at this and see where the breakdown is? And so I didn't just look at one email funnel as a whole. I was looking at all of the individual emails. We were looking at her website. How do people really purchase on her website? Let's look at your consumer behavior. And after we do that, we can really see where people are falling off, where people are clearly confused, and what information we need to double down on in order to really get them to understand. So data is so incredibly important. How do you read analytics really comes down to those 3 major pillars. Just one, kind of understanding it, having enough time and repetition, or having somebody come in and teach you what these different pieces mean, and looking at the health of your business. The next one is looking at kind of just like common sense and reverse engineering it, looking at some of that deductive reasoning, and then also looking at the benchmarks within your industry and seeing if you're above or below the benchmarks. The next one was submitted by Danielle. Not exactly sure this is a question, more of an idea, but I would love a podcast discussing the nuances of where the line is between building out loud style content and content that ends up attracting other business owners like you. This is a really good question, because this idea of kind of like a day in the life of a founder, or like building a business out loud where you're really bringing your audience behind the scenes, is really popular right now. And it absolutely is working, but there's a big difference between building out loud and creating an audience full of other people that are just trying to build what you're building, or having other people, other small business owners within there. And really what it comes down to is the overall takeaway of your content. So if your content is like, get ready with me to go to this market or this conference or this summit for my small business. If your content is, a day in the life of a small business owner, and you're speaking to small business owners, of course you're going to attract other small business owners, because that content is helpful to other small business owners. Now, building out loud means that you're bringing people along, but you're more so like mission problem driven. So you'll see people saying, come with me. Like I'm starting I saw somebody this week create a sauce brand for girls with PCOS that's doing this really, really well. I think the brand is She's the Sauce, and I follow them on Instagram, and their content is really good for building out loud, where they say, she's talking about, I am a PCOS girly and I decided to build a sauce brand. Like, here's what I'm doing this week, or something along those lines. I started really loving, once I got diagnosed with PCOS and I knew I needed to cut down my sugar, I missed my sauces. So I decided to build a brand that does it. Or saying, mistakes that I made building a PCOS friendly sauce brand, because everything always goes back to the mission, goes back to the problem. You're not creating educational content for small business owners. You're creating educational content still for your ideal customer. So I see this a lot where people post 5 things that somebody said to me at my market this weekend, or, this is behind the scenes of the day in the life of a small business owner, or what my morning routine is as a small business owner. That is going to be attracting, you are at that point a small business influencer. You want to be an influencer for your message, for your problem that your product is actually solving. So Danielle, this is a really good question, and it is a fine line, because if you build a community full of other business owners just like you, it's going to be really hard to make sales. We are trying to attract your ideal customer that you are actually solving their problems, so you have to create content that still talks to their problems. The next question is from Tracy. I have shifted my content over the last month. I've been getting a lot more views, but I'm not converting many of those views to followers or getting much engagement. What's the best way to shift from just being seen to being trusted and followed? Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you who are loving the podcast but wish we could dive deeper into every episode topic together. I have actually started a completely free podcast community called the Small Business Cafe for exactly this purpose. Inside this community, we dive deeper into every podcast episode, provide bonus resources, and actually host completely free monthly coaching calls with me, so you can get your questions answered. Plus, you get to submit your questions for our Friday coaching session episodes and connect with other founders too. If you have been loving being a part of this podcast and want to connect with other brand founders, plus get extra support from me, click the link in the show notes below to join. On Instagram, this is again, great question. All of them are great questions. If you're seeing a lot of views but not a lot of followers, that tells me that there's something wrong within the call to action of that piece of content, as well as really setting the scene of that piece of content. And so a lot of times my clients will say, hey, I got 30,000 followers, or I got 30,000 views on this video, but I only got 1 to 2 followers from it. What's the problem with it? A, is this content actually made for followers? So if you follow me, you know that I have content to grow, content to brand, and content to sell. I teach these 3 different styles of content because some content is made to actually convert into followers. It doesn't mean that it has to be like, hey, follow me, but you do need to have certain elements in a piece of content that actually gets them to want to follow you. So there's something around just being entertaining and actually getting people to want to join your movement and join your business as a whole. And a lot of times, converting people from views to followers really is getting deeper with the topics that you're talking about. Are you actually talking about, again, with that PCOS example, are you talking about the problem people are having? Are you talking about something that is helpful for your audience? Are you giving them a reason to come back? I think a big way that you could also do this is a signature series is definitely helping people really gain some more followers, because it makes people want to come back. But people need to understand that they want to follow you because you are providing other content for them. A lot of times when people aren't following you is because there's no true value in everything that you're sharing. There is no true reason that you're putting it out there other than just trying to push your product. So we have to think about, a follower isn't following you to just get more product information. They're following you because they want to get that information that they saw. They want to learn something. They want to be entertained. They want to be inspired. And that doesn't have to do anything with your business. So your feed content has to have a pillar that is just made to get people to just provide value, to make people want to stick around before they're actually fully interested in your products. The next one is from Brandy. I could use a pretty cut and dry definition of what working on versus working in your business might consist of. Yeah, I think a good way to think about this is working on your business is growth generating activities versus working in your business is operation driven activities, meaning in order for your business to operate, for orders to go out, for orders to come in, that is working in your business. Working on your business is expansion opportunities. So a couple of examples here. Working in your business is going to be production. It's going to be shipping. It's going to be, creating new products. That can kind of be working on your business if you're developing other things. But if you are just constantly answering emails, customer service, it's like the things to actually make your business operate, the day-to-day tasks is working in your business. It's customer support, it's emails, it's going to be kind of just like the poking around stuff, the fulfilling orders, the creating of the orders, that is working in your business. It is like the execution of your product or your service, versus working on your business is going to be revamping your website. It's going to be hiring out people to help you. It's going to be analyzing your numbers. It's going to be doing competitive analysis of what's working within your audience. It's going to be doing research and development. It's going to be doing PR opportunities to try to figure out how to get in front of new people, creating collaborations with people, reaching out to influencers. It's more growth generating activities. And the problem here is that many business owners, kind of like we've already talked about when it comes to outsourcing your production, is if you are hand making your product, already 60% of your week at least is just working in your business, and you don't actually ever have time to work on your business. You have to have structured time to work on your business, otherwise it falls to the wayside so often. As business owners, we have to understand that your goal in your business is to lead and to grow. It is not to be the labor of your business. And so you have to outsource those working in your tasks first, most of the time, the things that don't take your brain, and that can be outsourced. And that is really, really, really important. Next one is Jen. I'm new to your podcast like last week. Oh, Jen, welcome. So happy you're here. I have a Facebook group that is like my money maker, but want to train customers to use my site instead of asking for a custom invoice. My social, I know, needs work on Instagram, and Facebook is very different from Instagram. But do you think I need a different audience on Instagram that isn't my more needy Facebook VIP members? So there's a couple of things here, Jen. First things first, Facebook groups were very popular to be a moneymaker within the last few years. If you've started to see sales declining in Facebook groups, why that is because Facebook groups are prioritized a lot less in the Facebook feed these days. So a lot of my clients that depend on Facebook groups, we are really trying to transition them into a different model depending. And they also feel this way as well, is that these people are a little bit more needy. But to me, what you need to do, Jen, is you need to cut off sending custom invoices cold turkey. If you are selling custom invoices to these people and they're not shopping from your website, that is just like adding so much more manual working in your business time that you could just have automated that's already out there. So if somebody asks you like, hey, I would like to buy this, I would say, great, here's the link on my website. You know, have your website completely built out so you can say, yeah, great, here's the link to my website. Can't wait for your order to come in. Here's the link, and just start transitioning over to there. I would probably do an announcement in your Facebook group as well and just say, hey, as our businesses scale, I can no longer send personalized invoices. And now what we're doing is we have a website. It's very robust. It's a very structured system. Let's just send everybody over to the website. Please make all of your purchases on the website from now on. So this isn't really like you said, used a great word here. You need to train your customers. You have trained your customers that they can kind of shove you around and need to be needier. You now have to set some boundaries and say, this is what I want you to do. This doesn't mean that it's the wrong audience. It's just you've kind of let them rule the world for the last however many years. And so I highly recommend, yes, kind of pushing them all to your website. Go and purchase through the website this way. And I don't think this means that you need to make a different audience on Instagram. As new people come in, I wouldn't set the scene that you build invoices. I want you to just like put the hammer down. This is not what we do. You know, you can, and it can be gently, it can be nicely, but this is just not what we do. You now are purchasing through the website. Now, if it's a custom order, I don't know what your business is, Jen, but if it's a custom order, that might be a little bit different. But for things that are on your website, if there's a product listing, you should have a robust enough website that you don't have to send custom invoices, depending on your business. If you're like a bakery or something like that, that might be a little bit different because some of those are going to be custom invoices. But again, I would have a process to it. I wouldn't just have them send you a DM to reach out. What I would recommend doing is having you probably do like an input form for a specialty cake or something like that they can go through your website and fill that out, and then you can reach back out to them and say, hey, this is what this looks like, here's your invoice, we can get started with it if all of this sounds good. But you want to systemize all of these pieces, because sending people custom invoices every single time is going to be a pain in the butt, Jen. I'm sure you're so sick of it. Luke, hello Luke. Next one is best way to get seen right now. Yeah, I've seen this a lot of people feeling like reach is really, really down. You're very much so not alone, Luke. If you're feeling like things are really struggling to get seen, first things first is it's not impossible. I have plenty of clients that are still getting seen, that are still gaining followers, that are still really building in a lot of different ways. There are so many ways to get seen and gain visibility that isn't just like Instagram Reels or posting organic content. I just created a video on this a couple of weeks ago. It might have been like 2 or 3 Fridays ago. You can scroll back up and I talk about visibility, but what we're really talking about is that reels are just one piece of the pie. First things first is that there's a specific reel or specific content that is created, as we've already said, to actually get you seen and get you followers. So we have to make sure that you know what that style of content is. The next thing is that you can explore a whole bunch of other things. When like getting seen, you can get really gritty with it. When was the last time you did a collaboration with a brand that has a similar audience to you? When was the last time you pitched a journalist for PR? When was the last time that you played around with some ads and some top of funnel awareness campaigns? When was the last time that you reached out to some influencers and tried to get into the hands of other people? There's a lot of ways to get seen. It doesn't really mean a best way. It depends on where your consumer is, what do they consume, and we have to find the best way for your brand and within your industry. This is why business information is so nuanced, because it really depends on your consumer. It depends on your industry. It depends on your product, where you get seen. Some industries are still really, really great with magazines. Some industries, you wouldn't gain a single visibility piece or a single piece, an ounce of brand recognition from magazines. Some are really great with influencer marketing. Some it's just not converting. So Luke, in order for you to give you a very specific answer here, we first need to make sure who your consumer is and where we can really go from there. Next one is April, where do we find good marketing people? Ooh, lots of hiring questions today. Maybe I need to make more episodes on hiring. Let me know if you think that would be helpful. Where to find good marketing people? This is really tough, April. I'm just going to let you know, because, you know, in marketing, it is the home of your brand. It is absolutely the core of it's like where people find you. It's the home of your community. And so you really have to look at your marketing person as the face of your brand. You have to really love them and their values and really align with them and really trust them to take over a lot of pieces. You also have to really like their aesthetic style. I think it's really hard to train somebody's aesthetic visual style. And so you want to hire somebody that you're like, wow, I'm obsessed with your visual style. I'm obsessed with your visual kind of like fortitude of your style that you're creating, or the ability for them to adapt their style into looking like your brand. So I don't really think it's where to find good marketing people, because I would just put a post out on your Instagram. A lot of times people that love your brand are already following you and they might want to be doing marketing. If you're wanting to hire in-house, like on your own team, I would put something out there to your community, put some feelers out. LinkedIn is a great way to do it as well. And then I would have them create something. I would have them create something around your brand, give them some brand identity and like a topic of a post that you want them to talk about, and have them create it. Because I think it's really important to see, first and foremost, if you like their style of what they're creating based on, you know, they can follow instructions and like, you know, look at a topic that you want covered and they can really make that visual element happen. I would ask them more personal questions than skill questions. Really make sure that you feel aligned, that you feel like they are a really good fit for you and your team, because this is somebody that you have to work really well with. And then of course, you don't want to hire somebody without marketing experience. I have a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm just going to hire this like high schooler to do my marketing. That is just not a good idea. Even hiring a marketing student, if you are not somebody that is proficient at marketing and willing to kind of have like an intern that you are coaching through that process, if you really want to outsource it and find a good marketing person, you need to find somebody that is seasoned in marketing, that has done marketing before. And yes, some students are great. You can totally find a marketing student out there somewhere that I'm sure is wonderful. Like I was doing marketing in college, but I highly recommend finding somebody with some level of experience deeper than just a college education on it as well. Jessica, I make resin and filigree metal earrings. Some of my resin earrings are custom made with unique designs that I've personally designed or have a friend help me design. I don't have my own sublimation machine, so I outsource the making of the resin pieces and then I turn them into earrings. I'm designing the images and ultimately designing the size and the style, etc. I'm just not personally transferring the image to the resin myself. It honestly saves me time and money to outsource that part of it. I struggle with calling my jewelry handmade for that reason. I am currently calling it handmade because I do the majority of the design. But is it dishonest to call it that since I outsource the sublimation piece of the creating? I don't think it's dishonest per se. Honestly, I'm not somebody that thinks that marketing based on being handmade is actually overall overly profitable. Like, when was the last time you were like, oh, I really want a pair of handmade earrings? I do think that of course it can add like an element of warmth to your brand. But if you think about this, like Kate Spade designs all of her pieces, but she would never call her business handmade. Like, Kate Spade has her name on it. She designs them all. She sketches them all out. She's the creation behind her brand. She's designing them, but you don't need to make them handmade and you don't need to market them as handmade to really think that you have that like level of warmth and personability behind it. It sounds like you outsource a very small piece of this, that you're still designing it. It's really just the transfer of it. I don't see anything wrong with you utilizing the word handmade from like, is it dishonest? No, but just from a differentiator standpoint, being handmade, it doesn't really matter if you use it or not. At the end of the day, it's not going to be the differentiating factor whether somebody buys from you or not. So don't feel like it's like a bottleneck point of what you can utilize, what you can say, because at the end of the day, it's not going to be like this absolutely like, wow, this is a handmade business. Holy cow. Like, I absolutely love it. I would rather you dive deep into the messaging, the feeling of really owning your product and really diving into more of the depth behind the brand rather than handmade. Handmade is like a feature of your brand. You can put it as like a badge of honor on your website, all handmade designs. That's totally fine. But especially in an industry that like eventually you might want to outsource production, as I've said already in this episode, if you have marketed and like really tried to differentiate based on being handmade, it's going to be really hard to ever scale because your audience is only going to know you based on being handmade. And so it's going to be hard to kind of pivot. I like to say it's kind of like the Subway $5 footlong. Now the footlongs are like $12, but they marketed their business as a $5 footlong for so long that now people are pissed when they go in still like 5 to 10 years later when they go in there and they're like, how is this not $5? And they're like, oh, we no longer do that. That was like, back in the day. And so when you market too much, whether it's on affordability or handmade, some of those major pieces, it's just going to be tough to ever be able to scale and expand as things change from there as well. The last question that we're going to chat about here is from Jen. We have 2 Jens today. What we're answering here is, she says, I am right around $1 million D2C, direct to consumer, and I am looking to expand into wholesale in a big way. Where do you recommend starting on expanding into wholesale? This is a really good question. Expanding into wholesale is a great way to scale your sales. It's a great way to get some brand awareness. It's great because people can find you without you having to do any marketing. People are just like foot traffic. You're just in those different places. First things first is, I think, starting, depending on the statistics of your brand, if you have $1 million in sales, you could probably start expanding into larger names. But I do think it's helpful to kind of get some bearings under you to start with some boutiques, artisan stores, things like that. But you also want to think about all of the different places. I do think like wholesale is going to be a numbers game. You're going to have to follow up with these people a bunch of times. You're going to have to send a bunch of pitches. It very much so is a numbers game. Like, the average conversion rate of a wholesale pitch and actually becoming in stores is like 1 to 2%. And so in other like more niche industries, it's up to 5%, meaning for every 100 pitches that you send, you will convert 1 to 5 of them into actual sales. And so understanding a lot of this is going to have to be you reaching out, doing a lot of outreach, doing a lot of follow-up. First things first, I recommend creating a really great spreadsheet. I use Notion for everything. I love Notion. I would recommend creating a really good kind of flow of how you're going to manage your leads and where you're at with all of these people. And then I would start with some smaller kind of artisan stores, boutiques, things like that, that are really great with your ideal customer. So there's all of these kind of like small business focused stores out there, more specific to your niche. And I would reach out to them, see if they're looking for any wholesalers, and I would work your way up to big wholesalers. Some brands that you can look at, like Urban Outfitters, Anthropologie, Francesca's, if they're still around, like different places like that. I feel like I haven't seen Francesca's in a long time, but I had clients able to get into a Francesca's, but stores like that might be a Midwest thing. I don't know. But stores that just have a variety of different products like that, you can start to at least start that relationship. So you can start with trying to connect with some of them on LinkedIn, some of the buyers, start trying to gather their information, sending a message that's just like, hey, I just want to introduce myself, would love to be in your stores, just want to like put me on your radar, wondering if you're interested, here's a one-pager. And I would go from there. And so when it comes to wholesales, we need to create the one pager, create a good system around it, start creating a list of leads and people to reach out for, and then create a really solid pitch email. And this is something that we can totally kind of workshop with each other as we create a really good pitch email that feels warm, but it's like, firm enough, but also gives the right information that they absolutely need. You need to know what these buyers are looking for. And then your goal is to just send as many emails as possible. And we just want to make sure these emails aren't like canned and cold and like everybody else's, because these people are getting pitched a million times a day. And so you really need to stand out from there. That's done with your one pager, that's done with the email, and that's done with the pitch that we're really sending over there as well. So when we're getting started on wholesale, kind of identifying what would happen if you got somebody from Urban Outfitters to respond and say, okay, great, we want 20,000 units. Do you have the capacity for that? If you don't, let's start smaller. If you were to have, again, like you could get into many stores. There are a lot of businesses that their like major point is that they get this huge wholesale order and then they need to spend $50,000 on inventory and they can't. And so we want to make sure that we are kind of thinking about that ahead of time. If you're pitching for big stores, Whole Foods, Urban Outfitters, Anthropologie, things like that, you have to realize you would then be put into every store and that would be thousands of units that you would need to produce. Again, if you are a handmade business, that might overwhelm you. Do you have the production for that? Do you have the capital for that? Do you have the inventory for that? If not, we might want to start smaller and scale up to some of those bigger stores. And you'll be able to get some more data that way, as well as you can say, hey, here's some data from these stores that we're already in. So you can kind of share that with those people. And it's a little bit more marketable in that sense as well. These were some really great questions, kind of a good variety of people just getting started, people trying to hire, people talking about marketing, sales, branding, a whole load of a process here. If you want to be included in our next Q&A, click the link in the show notes and join our Small Business Cafe. All of these were submitted by our podcast listeners who listen religiously every single week, and they had these questions of what is going on in their business. Would love to hear from you. We're going to be diving deeper into today's podcast episode in the cafe, as well as we do monthly actual Q&A calls where we're sitting down, and it feels a lot like this. Something that I love about doing these Q&A episodes is it can really feel what it feels like to be on like a hot seat coaching call with me, and where we can chit chat back and forth. I can get the context and I can really share some of that response in return. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. And I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. And I will see you in the next episode. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes, or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.